Imagine a love so strong, so consuming, that you would do anything, anything, to keep it alive. But what happens when the lies you tell to hold on to that love start unraveling, and the truth you've hidden begins to tear everything apart? What if, in the pursuit of keeping someone, you destroyed the very thing you wanted to protect? This is the story of a woman who faked a pregnancy, not out of malice, but out of desperation. And the shocking truth she tried to bury? It's about to surface. Stay tuned as we uncover how this one lie spirals into an emotional roller coaster, leading to a revelation that will leave you speechless. What happens when trust is shattered and a relationship built on lies crumbles? Keep watching as we unveil the jaw-dropping twist you'll never see coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with friends who might need to hear it. Maybe someone you know is struggling with love, trust, and the choices that shape our lives. Share this story with them, and let's keep the conversation going. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below, and let's see how far this story travels. But don't blink, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. It begins, as many love stories do, with a spark. A simple glance, a soft smile exchanged across a crowded room, and in that fleeting moment, everything changed. For her, it felt like fate had stepped in, guiding her heart into the hands of the one person who seemed to make the world feel whole. His name? Ethan. And to her, he was everything she had ever dreamed of. He wasn't just any man. No, Ethan was the embodiment of what every girl envisioned as the perfect partner. His laughter was the kind that made you feel lighter, as if all the burdens of the world had suddenly disappeared. His eyes, so deep, so sincere, seemed to hold secrets, mysteries of a life well lived, and the promise of a future to share. His presence was calming, like the gentle waves of the ocean that somehow made everything right again, no matter how turbulent the storm around them might be. He was handsome, effortlessly so. His charm was intoxicating, his success undeniable, but it wasn't just his outward appearance that drew her in. It was the way he made her feel. He made her feel like she was the only one in the room. When she spoke, he listened, not just with his ears, but with his heart. He would make her laugh when she thought she had no more tears left to cry. He would hold her close and make her feel safe in a world that often seemed so uncertain. In his arms, she felt like she belonged. Every moment they shared felt like the next chapter of a fairy tale she never wanted to end. And for the first time, she thought, maybe, just maybe, this was the real thing. This was love. Their connection was undeniable. In every look, every touch, there was something more than attraction. It was as if they had known each other forever. Like two souls reunited after a lifetime apart. Their dreams aligned. Their ambitions mirrored one another. Together, they felt invincible. Nothing could tear them apart. They laughed. They cried. They built a world within their world. He was the man she had waited for. The man who made her believe in fairy tales again. But as perfect as it seemed, as perfect as their love appeared to be, deep down, she couldn't shake a feeling. A feeling she tried to bury deep inside her. A feeling that something was missing. Ethan's love was like a beautiful painting. The brushstrokes of their life together were perfect in so many ways. Yet she couldn't help but wonder, was there a space in that painting left unfilled? Was there something he wasn't telling her? It was subtle at first, just a whisper in the back of her mind. But soon, that whisper grew louder. Something was off. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she couldn't ignore it. The future they had dreamed of seemed so close, yet there was a nagging uncertainty growing in her chest. And that, dear viewer, is where the story takes a turn. Because sometimes, the most perfect love stories aren't as flawless as they appear. And sometimes, the cracks in the foundation are only noticed when it's almost too late. She wanted it all. She imagined their future in the most vivid, beautiful way. The house, the laughter, the warmth of children running through the halls. A family, a real family, the one she had always dreamed of. A baby in her arms, their baby. She could already picture it. Sleepless nights, but filled with joy. The little cries in the middle of the night, soon to be followed by laughter and smiles. The soft coos of a child learning to speak, the tiny hand grasping hers, the first steps, the first words. Every detail danced in her mind like the sweetest melody, and for a while, She was certain it would happen. They were ready. They were meant to be parents. She could already feel the love surrounding their child, just as she had always envisioned. She could feel the life they would build together. And Ethan? Ethan, she knew, would be the perfect father. How could he not be? He had everything she had ever wanted in a partner. Their life together seemed like the natural next step. It made sense, didn't it? They were ready for this new chapter, ready to grow into the parents they both longed to be. She dreamed of the day they would bring a little one into the world, the joy, the laughter, the completeness. But as the months passed, something began to shift. Ethan wasn't on the same page. At first, it wasn't obvious. A comment here, a hesitation there. He'd say things like, "We have time," or "Let's enjoy our time together before we take that step." It wasn't that he didn't want a family. It was just that he wasn't ready. Not yet. He still had so much he wanted to do. He needed more time to focus on his career. Maybe he wanted to travel more. Or maybe he just wasn't sure if this was the right time. Each excuse he gave her was like a small, cold gust of wind, freezing the warm hope that once enveloped her heart. Every time he said he wasn't ready, a tiny part of her, just a tiny part, began to shrink. Was it her he wasn't ready for? Was it them? Or was it the responsibility of becoming a parent? She couldn't help but wonder. Days turned into weeks, and those weeks turned into months. The clock on her dream, the dream she had held so tightly for so long, seemed to tick louder with each passing day. The question she had been avoiding kept swirling in her mind, haunting her. What if he never felt the same way? What if he didn't want a family? What if she was ready, but he wasn't? The thought terrified her. She loved him more than anything. Losing him was not an option. Not now, not ever. And so, as the doubt grew in her chest, a new feeling began to take its place: desperation. She had always been the type of person to plan, to control what she could, to make sure everything was perfect. But now, as time passed and the dream of a family seemed to slip further away, she felt out of control, vulnerable. And that's when she began to hatch a plan. It wasn't a conscious decision at first. It started small, an idea that seemed harmless at first, one that would make him understand her desire for a family, for the future they could have together. The more she thought about it, the more the idea seemed to take root. She couldn't let him slip away, couldn't let the life she had always imagined slip through her fingers. So she would give him a reason to commit, to give him something he couldn't ignore, something that would bring them closer together. She'd make him see what she saw, feel what she felt, and it would be perfect. The dream would be realized, and they would have the family they both wanted. But the lie, oh, that lie was never meant to grow as big as it did. It was just one small seed, planted in the quietest corner of her heart. One lie to keep him close. But as she would soon learn, some lies, no matter how small, have a way of spiraling out of control until they become something much, much bigger than she could have ever imagined. And by the time the truth started to unravel, it was already too late. It happened one quiet night. One of those still, tranquil evenings where the world outside seemed to be asleep, and the weight of her thoughts felt heavier than ever. Alone in the dimly lit room, she stared at the reflection of herself in the mirror, the truth gnawing at her from the inside. Her heart raced, her breath shallow. She had always prided herself on being someone who didn't lie, someone who held honesty above all else. But now, in this moment of desperation, her mind whispered a different narrative. She could hear Ethan's voice in her head. "I'm not ready yet. Not yet." The words that had been said in gentle tones, with love, with concern, were starting to feel like sharp knives, stabbing into her chest. The future she had dreamed of was slipping away, bit by bit, as the man she loved pulled further and further away from the life she had imagined. The dream of a family, of a baby, began to fade, and with it, the belief that their love could be enough to bridge the gap between them. Her heart ached with the thought of losing him, of never having the life she had always wanted, the life she thought she could have with him. What if she never became a mother? What if he never wanted to build that life with her? The more she thought about it, the harder it was to breathe. And so, in the silence of the night, she made a decision. It was a decision that felt small in the moment. It seemed harmless, even justified. She told him she was pregnant. She told him that they were about to have a child. She hadn't thought much of it at first. It was only supposed to be a small thing, a temporary solution, something to get him to understand. Surely, once he saw the baby, once he realized how serious she was, he would want the same future. The future they both dreamed of. But something changed the moment the words left her lips. What was meant to be a fleeting lie, a mere attempt to make him see the future they could have, grew. It grew into something much bigger, something far more dangerous than she could ever have imagined. At first, she felt relief. He was excited, even thrilled. He wanted to celebrate. "We're going to have a baby," he said, and she saw the joy in his eyes. For a brief moment, she felt like everything had finally fallen into place. Like their future, which had seemed so uncertain, was now crystal clear. But she knew, deep down, that she couldn't take it back. She couldn't undo what had been said. It wasn't just a lie anymore. It was her story now. The lie had woven itself into the fabric of their relationship, and it had become far more complicated than she could have ever imagined. She watched, with a mix of fear and guilt, as the days turned into weeks. Each new day brought with it the pressure to maintain the illusion, to make it real. The excitement in Ethan's voice made her heart race, and with each passing moment, the weight of her decision grew heavier. She had never expected that one small lie could become so dangerous. But there was no turning back now. It had already begun. She had told him she was pregnant. She had planted the seed, and now she had to nurture it. She had to feed the lie, make it grow, or risk losing everything. The fear of being exposed, of having the truth uncovered, began to haunt her every waking moment. Every smile Ethan gave her, every touch, every word, was it genuine, or was he just falling for the lie she had told? How long could she keep this up? How long before the cracks in her story began to show? And with every passing day, the lie grew. What had once seemed harmless, even necessary, began to take on a life of its own. The weight of maintaining this deception started to feel unbearable, suffocating. It was as if she had built a house of cards, and the slightest move could bring it all crashing down. The fear gripped her in the pit of her stomach. What would happen when he found out? What would happen when the truth finally surfaced? At first, everything seemed perfect. Ethan was over the moon. He was going to be a father. The excitement in his voice was unmistakable, and his joy was contagious. They began making plans, dreaming of the future together, as a family. The house, the nursery, the baby's name, it all seemed so real, so tangible. He was already imagining their life with a child. His hands would cradle their baby, his heart swelling with pride as he looked at the little one they had created together. The future they had only talked about was now coming to life, and the love between them seemed to deepen. But for her, every passing day brought a new challenge. She was forced to fake a growing belly, to act as if everything was exactly as she had said. She told herself that it was just for a little while. Once the baby arrived, once she could show him the proof of what she had promised, everything would be fine. But it wasn't fine. With every lie she told, she found herself sinking deeper into the web she had spun. She had to keep track of the details, the dates, the small things she had said. Her mind was consumed with making sure she didn't slip up. She was terrified that one wrong word, one mistake, could unravel everything. And every time she looked at Ethan, that fear grew. Could he sense it? Could he see through her? Could he tell that something wasn't right? As the weeks passed, her body began to change in ways that couldn't be ignored. The illusion of pregnancy became harder to maintain, and the anxiety that coursed through her veins grew more intense. She had to buy new clothes to cover her growing belly, to make it look real. She had to keep up the charade, convincing him, convincing herself, that everything was just as it should be. She started to feel trapped in her own lie, unable to escape. And then came the questions, the small, seemingly innocent questions that made her heart race. When do we go to the doctor? Can we start picking out baby names? They were questions she didn't have answers to, and with every question, the pressure mounted. The walls were closing in, and she was running out of excuses. What if he started to demand proof? What if he insisted on seeing an ultrasound? Or worse, demanded to go to a doctor's appointment with her? The fear of being exposed became all-consuming, a constant presence in her life. She couldn't breathe without wondering if today would be the day her world came crashing down. But the more she faked it, the more real it all seemed. She started to believe it herself. She began to imagine the future, the family they would have, the joy they would share. It was as if the lie had become her reality. And yet, deep down, she knew it was all fragile, a house of cards on the verge of falling. How long could she keep it up? And what would happen if Ethan found out? As the lie grew, so did her fear. She could no longer tell where the truth ended and the deception began. Every touch, every word from Ethan now carried a weight she couldn't escape. And with every passing day, the fear of being exposed became more unbearable, more suffocating. Could she continue living this way? Could she keep lying to the man she loved, knowing that one small slip-up would destroy everything? The fear, the guilt, the anxiety. Each day felt like a race against time. But the truth always has a way of catching up with you, doesn't it? And as the days turned into weeks, she couldn't help but wonder, how much longer could she keep the truth from Ethan? How long before everything came crashing down, leaving nothing but the shattered pieces of a lie that had grown far too big to hide? And then the unthinkable happened. It wasn't anything grand. No dramatic confrontation, no fiery argument. It didn't come with a warning or an ominous sign. No, it was something much quieter, much more insidious. The kind of discovery that sneaks up on you when you least expect it, like a crack in a perfect porcelain vase that, once exposed, causes everything to shatter. It all started with a phone call. A simple, seemingly innocent mistake. She hadn't meant to leave the phone unlocked. She hadn't meant to let him hear the message. It was an accident, really, a slip of the hand, a forgotten detail, one small crack in the story she had so carefully constructed. But in that moment, that one small mistake, an unintended glimpse of a text, a name in the conversation, the kind of thing you don't even notice until it's too late, was all it took. Ethan had always trusted her. Their relationship had been built on honesty, or so she thought. They had shared everything, or so she had believed. But now, in that split second, the truth ripped open the heart of their love, and everything she had worked so hard to protect. The family they dreamed of, the future she had sold him on, the lies that had kept him close, began to crumble. At first, he was silent. He didn't yell, didn't accuse. He just stared at her. His eyes, which had once been so full of love, now seemed empty, distant. She saw the flicker of confusion at first, as if he couldn't quite grasp what he was seeing, what he was hearing. Then, slowly, the realization began to sink in, and with that realization came disbelief, betrayal, heartbreak. How could she do this? Why would she lie to him? The questions flooded his mind, each one more painful than the last. He wasn't angry, not at first. No, it was worse. He was hurt, betrayed. He had trusted her. He had loved her with everything he had, and now it all felt like it had been built on lies. Everything, the love, the promises, the future they had talked about for so long, had crumbled in an instant. In the span of one moment, everything they had built together was destroyed. And as he stood there, staring at her with a mixture of disbelief and pain in his eyes, she realized the magnitude of her actions. She had done this. She had caused this. The wall she had so carefully constructed around her lie had come crashing down, and now there was nothing left but the wreckage of everything she had hoped to protect. Can you imagine the pain she felt in that moment? The raw, gut-wrenching agony of watching the person you love, someone who had trusted you with their heart, look at you like you were a stranger? To see the person you had once shared your deepest dreams with, the person who had once held you close, now staring at you with nothing but hurt and confusion? It's a pain that goes beyond words, a pain that cuts so deep, it's almost as though the wound is in your very soul. In that moment, she knew she had lost him, not just his trust, but him, the future they had planned, the life they had dreamed of, the family she had hoped for. It was all slipping through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Imagine the crushing weight of that realization. She had spent so long trying to control her fate, trying to force the future into something she could manage. She had built a life out of lies, thinking that if she just kept up the act long enough, it would all fall into place. But now, the wall she had built around herself had fallen, and she was left standing in the rubble, surrounded by nothing but broken promises and shattered trust. The betrayal, Oh, the betrayal. It wasn't just against Ethan. It was against herself. Because in that moment, when the truth came out, she realized that she had betrayed her own beliefs. She had compromised everything she once stood for, everything that made her who she was, for the sake of a dream that now felt like a distant, unreachable mirage. Her mind raced, her heart pounded. She tried to explain, try to make him understand. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she pleaded. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted us to have what we both wanted. But the words felt hollow, like they were being swallowed up by the chasm that had opened between them. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't want her excuses. And who could blame him? How could he ever trust her again? But just when she thought it was all over, when she thought the damage was irreparable, something even more shocking happened. In the midst of the breakdown, in the heart of the devastation, Ethan's expression changed. It wasn't anger that filled his eyes. No, it was something much darker, something deeper. It was a quiet storm that brewed in the silence between them. The pain on his face shifted, replaced by a coldness she had never seen before. His voice, once full of warmth and affection, became a low, controlled tone. He wasn't just hurt. He was calculating. And that was when she realized the true horror of what she had done. Because the truth wasn't the only thing he had discovered. No, Ethan had found out something else. Something that would shatter her even more than the lie she had told him. Something that would change everything. And in that moment, she understood that the consequences of her actions weren't just going to destroy their relationship. They were going to rip apart the very foundation of everything she thought she could control. But what she didn't expect, what she never could have prepared herself for, was that Ethan wasn't just angry about the lie. No, his emotions ran much deeper than that. He wasn't just hurt or betrayed. It was something much more profound, something that shook the very foundation of everything she thought she knew. The truth that had been hiding in the shadows, the secret that had lain dormant for so long, wasn't hers. No, the shocking twist was that she wasn't the only one hiding something. The person she had trusted with her heart, the one she thought she knew better than anyone, was keeping something from her, a truth so powerful, so life-altering, that it made her own deception pale in comparison. In the moment of their confrontation, when Ethan's face hardened and his voice became steady and cold, she thought she was prepared for the worst. She had braced herself for his anger, for the disappointment, the heartbreak. But what he revealed next was beyond anything she could have ever imagined. The bombshell he dropped was like a thunderclap in the stillness, a revelation that shattered her world into 1,000 pieces. He wasn't just hurt by her lies. He had been hiding something far worse. He had been lying to her about everything. The truth she had fought so hard to keep buried. It wasn't the only truth that had been kept from her. And as the words left his lips, she felt as if the ground beneath her feet was ripped away. The foundation of their entire relationship, the love, the promises, the future, crumbled in an instant. Everything she thought she knew, everything she had believed about him, everything she had trusted, was now called into question. What if everything she thought was true was wrong? What if the love they shared, the future she had been clinging to, was built on a house of lies just as much as her own? Her mind raced, struggling to piece together the truth from the fragments of what he had just told her. Had it all been a lie? Had she been living in a fantasy this whole time, believing in a future that wasn't real? Her desperate attempt to keep him, to create the family she so desperately wanted, was that just the beginning of a much darker, more complicated story than she ever could have imagined? It was the moment everything turned, the moment when her world stopped spinning, and she was forced to confront the truth she had so carefully avoided. Because just when she thought she was in control, just when she thought she had found a way to hold on to him, she learned that the truth she had been running from was nothing compared to the truth he had been hiding from her. The shockwaves of this revelation rippled through the air, crashing over both of them in waves of disbelief and confusion. It wasn't just the weight of the secrets revealed. It was the way they began to twist and overlap, forming an intricate web of deception and betrayal that neither of them had expected. The future they had both believed in was now completely up for grabs. Could it be the end of their love story? Could everything they had worked so hard to build together now be destroyed, torn apart by secrets and lies? Or could this shocking twist, this unexpected revelation, be the beginning of something even more profound? Could it lead them to the truth they never saw coming, something that could either save them or tear them apart for good? As the truth unraveled before their eyes, the weight of it all was suffocating. Each new revelation added another layer of complexity to the tangled mess of emotions and broken trust that surrounded them. For every lie that had been exposed, another one loomed larger, waiting to be uncovered. The future of their relationship hung precariously in the balance. One wrong move, one misplaced word, could send them spiraling beyond repair. Could they ever find their way back to each other? Could they rebuild what had been broken? Or was the damage too deep, too irreversible? The path ahead was unclear. What had once seemed like a love story straight out of a fairy tale had become a dark, twisted mystery, one that neither of them knew how to navigate. But as the truth continued to unravel, one thing became clear: neither of them would ever be the same again. And as the shockwaves of this discovery rippled through them both, they realized that they were at a crossroads. The life they had dreamed of was no longer certain. Everything they thought they knew about love, about trust, about themselves, was now up for debate. And with that, they both stood on the edge of a new chapter, one that held both unimaginable pain and a glimmer of hope. The future of their relationship was uncertain, and as the truth continued to unfold, there was only one thing left to ask. Would they survive the twists and turns of the story they had unknowingly started together? Or would the weight of their lies crush them both? Now, the air is thick with silence. The dust has settled, and what's left is the wreckage of everything they once held dear. They stand at the crossroads, both of them, trapped in a moment where the weight of their actions hangs over them like a storm cloud, darkening everything they've known. Ethan stands there, his eyes distant and cold, a man who has been irreparably changed. He is no longer the person she thought she knew. The hurt is still there, etched deep in the lines of his face. And for her, standing before him, her heart breaks into 1,000 pieces. She can't take back the lies. She can't erase the hurt. She can't undo the damage. The truth has come to light, and now they must face the consequences of everything they've done. What comes next? Can love survive the weight of betrayal? Can it survive the countless lies, the shattered trust, the broken promises? It's a question that lingers in the air, unanswered. Because here, at this critical moment, they both have a choice to make. A decision that will define not just their future, but who they are as individuals. Would she walk away from the man she once loved, walk away from the dream she fought so hard to create, even if it means confronting the truth about herself? Or will she fight for what little remains of their love, desperate to salvage something from the wreckage, determined to make it right? And Ethan, will he forgive her? Will he allow the love they shared to guide him through the pain and betrayal? Or will he close off his heart, unable to trust her again, unable to believe in anything they once had? This is the moment we, as viewers, are left to wonder. What would you do in their shoes? Would you walk away from the pain and start over? Or would you fight for what's left, no matter the cost? The weight of betrayal is a heavy burden to bear. Can they both find redemption in the ashes of their love? Or is this the end of the road? In the end, though, it's not just about the lies we tell others. It's about the lies we tell ourselves. The stories we craft in our minds to justify our actions, to make sense of the chaos we create. It's easy to convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing, that we're acting out of love, out of desperation, out of fear. But when everything comes crashing down, when the truth is laid bare, we're left with the most painful question of all. Why did we do it? How far are we willing to go for love? To what lengths are we prepared to stretch our own morals, our own sense of truth, to hold on to something we're afraid of losing? Is love worth sacrificing our integrity? Is it worth compromising who we are just to keep someone by our side? And when everything falls apart, when the lies and the secrets come tumbling out, when the trust is broken and the damage is done, is it too late to make it right? Can you go back? Can you undo the hurt and the pain? Can you rebuild from the ashes of your mistakes? Or is the damage irreparable, the wounds too deep? These are the questions that linger long after the final words have been spoken. These are the reflections that follow when the dust of the storm is settled, when the raw emotions of betrayal have subsided just enough for the truth to sink in. Because, ultimately, we're all left to ask ourselves the same thing. Is it too late? Is it too late for them? Is it too late for us? As we draw closer to the end of this emotional journey, one last twist leaves you hanging, your heart racing, your mind spinning. The story isn't over yet. No, there's one more revelation waiting just around the corner. The future remains uncertain, the outcome still hanging in the balance. The truth about love, betrayal, and the choices we make has not yet revealed its final form. But the most powerful part of this story isn't the twists, the secrets, or even the heartbreak. No, the most powerful part of this journey, the part that resonates deep within all of us, is the lesson it teaches. It's the realization that sometimes we try so hard to hold on to something, to someone, that we forget what it means to truly let go. What happens when fear shapes our choices, when the desire to control the future blinds us to the consequences of our actions? When we think we can manipulate love, bend it to our will, without truly understanding the cost. This story, at its heart, is a reminder of the dangers of letting fear dictate our lives, our hearts, our relationships. Because when we act out of fear, when we build our world on lies, the price we pay can be far steeper than we ever anticipated. And now, as the storm of emotions begins to settle, as the wreckage of their love story remains strewn around them, we're left with one final question. What happens next? Before we end this story, we want to hear from you. What do you think happens next? Is there hope for them? Or has everything truly fallen apart beyond repair? Can they rebuild their trust? Or is this the final chapter in their love story? We want to know your thoughts, your predictions. Share your ideas in the comments below. Let's talk about it, because the conversation doesn't end here. You are part of this journey too, and your voice matters. So, what do you think? Is there a second chance on the horizon? Or is the damage too deep to heal? If you enjoyed this emotional roller coaster of a story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with friends who might need to hear it. Maybe someone you know is struggling with love, trust, and the choices that shape our lives. Share this story with them, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Your support means the world. Until next time, remember, no matter how dark the road, the truth always finds a way to the surface. So never stop searching for it. Take care, and we'll see you in the next chapter.